Adrian Newey has been linked to a shocking move away from Red Bull, and it seems like the British mastermind has hired experienced lawyers in order to see himself working on a car as early as 2026. This is a massive bombshell for Red Bull because even though Newey is under a contractual situation until the end of the 2025 year, the gardening leave that would have protected him to join a team before the beginning of the 2026 year has now shifted 1 year earlier, meaning that he could be influencing the car's design as early as 2026. With this in mind, could Newey's lawyers work on a miracle? And more importantly, is this the beginning of the downfall of Red Bull, considering Verstappen's situation as well? It goes without saying that one of the biggest bombshells in the Formula One world has been related to Adrian Newey and the exit clause that he has been working on with his lawyers for the 2025 season. Right now, the contract is obliging Adrian Newey to remain with Red Bull at the end of the 2025 year, but the lawyers of the 65-year-old are working on a clause that would see him exit the team as early as in the next couple of weeks, which would then enable him to work on a car next year if he's willing to continue his absolutely remarkable work in the sport. Rumours have also circulated about his potential retirement and calling it quits, but judging by the enormously large interest he's had from other teams like Aston Martin and Ferrari, I think it's pretty safe to assume that he will want to turn to one more successful team before he calls it quits on an extremely successful career. Whether or not the lawyers will be successful in their bid, it's up to the court and Red Bull to answer, because at the end of the day, the contractual obligations have to be respected, and it might be the Austrian team that would have to be asked whether or not they agree on a move like this. We already know their answer would be no, because they would be shooting themselves in the foot. So unless the lawyers have a hidden joker in their sleeve, then it would be interesting to see how this entire situation will unfold in front of the entire F1 world. A spokesperson from the Austrian team said that they have no comment on this matter at this time, and it was strange enough that Helmut Marko also denied to comment on it as well. Just a couple of weeks earlier, when the rumours about Newey's potential exit surfaced, he went on to say that he has been offered a role in another team a lot of times, but has denied it all of the time. So that would be the case in this situation as well. But the confidence has faded from Marko's voice in the last interview with ORF. And to fuel things up to a further extent, it has been reported that Newey has already submitted his official resignation to Red Bull. It is up to the team to review it and accept it with due diligence. The crack between the relationship of Newey and Horner, who seems to be the centrepiece of this entire situation, with the power shift happening in Red Bull between the Thai-based and the Austrian-owned side, was noted last year when the 50-year-old team principal went on to say that the importance of Newey is not as great as many would think. Furthermore, he said that Adrian's influence on the RB19, which was last year's challenger, had diminished by about 50%, whereas the RB20, the British mastermind, saw the car for the first time during its launch day in Milton Keynes. Many also believe that the RB17, the project that Newey is purely working on right now, is not something that he wanted in his soul, as he was appointed to it by Christian Horner, who wanted to give Pierre Wash and Enrico Balbo more freedom in their own respective roles. Be that as it may, there is definitely something that we can't ignore here, and that is the internal power struggle going on in Red Bull, and whether or not Horner was in the right all this time, even though the majority of the media went on to defend him in the allegation case. But if you have the greatest superstar in the sport wanting to leave your team, along with the greatest engineering mind in the sport, it does beg the question whether or not you are doing something wrong, which will bring us back to Jos Verstappen's words: as long as Horner remains at the helm of Red Bull, nobody will be happy and there will be unrest. The team tried to cover this up with their race wins, something they've done very successfully until now, but it seems like Newey's news is something too much to hide under the carpet, and if you add the Verstappen situation to it as well, it's safe to assume that an even bigger storm is now brewing over at Red Bull. The question is whether they've imposed this on themselves in their desperate power struggle, and how will they deal with the aftermath. And judging by the latest comments made from Auto, Motor and Sport, a renowned media outlet that has been reporting about Newey's situation from the very start, the current situation is very similar to what happened during his departure from Williams and McLaren, although the core nature is kind of different. The last thing that Newey wants in a team is an internal power struggle, and although he has expressed his gratitude and loyalty to Red Bull regardless of how the entire Horner situation would end up, it seems like he might have changed his mind and talked about his decision to every close member of his team, something that Red Bull has also denied to comment on. The bigger question that needs to be answered is whether or not Newey's departure will trigger a larger cascade of events in Red Bull that could effectively end with Verstappen leaving the team for Mercedes. Interestingly enough, the Dutchman has been reportedly scheduled to have a talk with the three shareholders of Mercedes F1, Toto Wolff, Ola Källenius and Jim Ratcliffe after the Miami GP in order to discuss a potential collaboration from 2025 onwards. While reports stated that Verstappen would remain in Red Bull with Horner's strong allegations towards Wolff that he needs to focus on his own team rather than the driver's lineup, what Jos Verstappen said has stirred up the drama even further, and when talking about the future of his son, Jos added, "I think everyone wants him and I think Max is okay for the moment because he has a fast car, but we also have to look further to 2026, so we are letting everything come to us at the moment. We stay very calm and we will see what happens." A very important thing that needs to be mentioned here are the 2026 regulations. Red Bull have admitted that they are entering the 2026 season with a deficit of 70 years compared to Ferrari, and some of the great moves that have been made by Hamilton are pointing towards a momentum that is currently on the Maranello side. This is definitely something that the rest of the grid is paying very close attention to, and even Toto Wolff said that he is viewing the entire situation as a fan and not from an emotional aspect, emphasising the importance of Newey and how every team on the grid can use his services to a great extent despite Horner's comments. Of course, there is this scenario that views Newey as a retired engineer at the end of the 2025 regulations, because he openly talks about the new regulations and where they are headed, stating his dissatisfaction with the entire process. However, being evaluated as a member who earns around £10 million per year, which is above what more than half the grid earns annually, and having only 7 drivers earning more than him, it's easy to assume that he is not looking for money, but another challenge in his career if he's to join another team. 2 of the greatest teams that are willing to sign him are Aston Martin and Ferrari, and both have something that he regrets not doing in the previous parts of his career: Alonso and Hamilton. However, a huge downside in Ferrari's case is the fact that he would have to move to Maranello, which was paradoxically enough the number 1 case he denied the team back in the COVID days when they made him an offer for his services, one that was quite lucrative, as Newey himself said. But now, with the increased technology services, Newey could be working remotely from the UK without too much hassle, even though that might not be what he's aiming for, as he wants to be hands-on with the newest project in his career, which is where Aston Martin could come in and be a better fit for his future career plans. With all this in mind, do you think that Newey would be joining Ferrari or Aston Martin? And more importantly, do you think it will trigger a cascade that would end up with Verstappen joining Mercedes in 2025 and ultimately signing the downfall of Red Bull? Let us know what you're thinking in the comments below, and once you do that, check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.